Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Carol Sakey speaking. So what exactly is He PuaPua? We keep on hearing about it, and should we be worried? Yes, we should be very worried, and I believe we actually need a referendum, put it to the people for the vote, because it's about making huge changes that will affect everyone in New Zealand. This is about apartheid and separatism. So He PuaPua, it's a report by a working party, a working group, as to self-determination of Indigenous people that was set out by the UN in 2007, the Declaration of Indigenous Peoples, the rights of Indigenous peoples. It was non-binding, like most international UN agreements. Non-binding means it hasn't entered our domestic laws. However, with this He PuaPua report, the working group that's been going about the country, attending is definitely a working group to actually get this all entered into legislation in New Zealand, into domestic law. Once entered into domestic law legislation and passed by Parliament, this will then be lawful in New Zealand. This is how it works. Most UN international agreements, declarations, etc., treaties are non-binding until they get entered into domestic legislations. They then become binding and lawful. So He PuaPua, well, in 2019, Nana Mahuta actually introduced it into Parliament. So therefore, if it was introduced into Parliament in 2019, why was none of this brought up before the elections? It was purposely kept quiet by all political parties in the cesspit of Wellington. Not one of them publicly spoke up. So I blame every one of them. National can say, oh, this is separatism, what have you, tell you what you want to hear, and you know what is happening. But they did actually agree to it in the first place. And then Labour jumped on board later on. So they're all damn guilty. Because how many people would not have voted for Labour if they had known what was happening? I'm sure there would have been many. So there was no public discussion around that, and the propaganda machine definitely didn't put it out there. It was all kept quiet and under the covers, purposely so. So He PuaPua's vision, well, the goal is 2040. 19 years from now, that will be the 200th anniversary of the Treaty of Waitangi. The UN produced this declaration, as I said, in 2007, but New Zealand abstained from agreeing to that in the very first place. Then later on, John Keyes sent Peter Sharples over to New York to the UN Assembly to actually agree on that Declaration of Indigenous Peoples. So they were the original ones, and now Labour then changed their mind. Helen Clark, in the first place, said she'd never sign it, but there you have it. And nothing is transparent, is it? Because all these politicians in the toilet bowl of Wellington are on the same page. So obviously, it was John Key that made a deal with the Maori Party. That's why he sent Peter Sharples over to New York to actually sign this declaration. And as I say, it was non-binding. And now we have all this workshop going on called, with the report called He PuaPua, where this working party had been working on this since 2019, and it will become into law. So Muriel Newman stated this will lead to tribal control, the end of democracy. Maori wards throughout New Zealand with non-elected members on them with full voting rights. That is happening. And this means 15% of the population with part Maori, about 16th Maori blood running through their veins, will control 50% of what is happening. That is a co-governance between the Crown and iwi. And when it comes to the final decision making, it will be down to iwi. So we're talking about all our country's resources, water, for instance, land. Now you see the repeal of the Resource Management Act, where farmers can't do what they like on their own land, and that will be governed, part governed, co-governed with Crown and Maori. You have water, the control of water, where all councils are being asked to relinquish their liabilities and assets to 5 giant entities, which will be governed by co-governance Maori and Crown. That's another one, the control of all waters in New Zealand, that is sewage, waste, and all drinking water, our life source, which comes from the skies above, the heavens above, that we naturally own. It's our God-given right is being controlled. So that's centralisation. So we're talking, the only reason that we got to hear about this He PuaPua coming out is, and it was publicly known, is because there was a request put through to OIA, the Officials Information Act, for information as to regards that, and then it came out. No one in damn Parliament were going to open their damn mouths about it. They all had their mouths completely shut. And of course, the propaganda machine are not going to tell you anything about it. And Ardern certainly wouldn't tell you anything about it before the elections. But on top of that, nor did any of the other politicians in the toilet bowl of Wellington. So they're all on the same damn page, not one different from the other. So let's think about that. If we got to hear through the OIA, think about this one. Andrew Little is currently rewriting the Officials Information Act. So how transparent will it be then? What is he going to put in place? Haven't we had enough of censorship, of the propaganda machine? It's going to be more and more and more of the same. So we're talking about 2 systems by stealth. So, yeah, the UN Declaration of Indigenous Peoples, well, there is a UN panel, and I believe that the people on that panel will be there until 2024. They have a role on that. Well, what countries are on that panel? Well, we have representatives of the Communist Chinese Party, the Communist Chinese regime, the CCP, and we also have 2 representatives from Russia. New Zealand is not on that panel. So people, you must ask yourself, what is going on here? This is more about control of people. And we all know that the Maori Party who's been pushing this, is a leftist party. Jacinda Ardern and her governance, leftists, socialists, Marxists, with communist characteristics, and that's what we've got in New Zealand. So yes, you need to sit up and listen to what Ngānea Mahuta said to the Australian government. We have a friendly cultural relationship, like the mythical Taniwha and the red dragon. Yes, people, we are living in a country. New Zealand is now becoming a communist-run regime, a dictatorship, because it appears by the Auckland City Council plan for 2019 to 2050, it's all about Indigenous economy, Maori economy, Maori business. The city is to be laid out, the Auckland is to be laid out with taking into mind what Maori would look like, what it would look like, how we can work it out for Maori. There's no mention of any other cultures, only Maori, and that's what it says. So, Resource Management Act, reform of the Three Waters, all being changed, and all about co-governance, Crown and iwi. It's already happening. And never mind 2040, don't be fooled by that number, because it's already happening. You see the bills in Parliament, the acts being amended. Wake up, people. We need a public referendum on this. We should have a referendum out there where every New Zealander, voting New Zealander, gets the right to say, determine, each individual can determine what they feel about it, what they think about it. Not just 15% of 1/16 married blood determining what happens to all of us. I just can't believe this is happening, and why we are not getting out there and doing something about it. It doesn't matter what we say and how much the truth tellers of New Zealand tell people as to what's going on, and the proof is there. It appears that the apathy persists. Anyhow, please share, and subscribe.